Okay. How's that coffee?
Pretty hot.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Don't Yuck My Yum.
Don't do it.
Don't
Yuck.
My
Yum.
Yo.
Yum.
This is the podcast where my wife Courtney and I make each other watch certain things that we may like ourselves and then show to the other person, and they can decide whether to yuck it or yum it. Courtney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. I am Courtney. I'm the wife.
It says so on your mug.
It does. It says bride.
Yeah.
Which that was me.
Mine just says person.
No, it doesn't.
I'm not special.
It says human.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
So for this episode,
Yes.
this was your choice.
It was.
But you actually picked a really, really good one, I must say. Is that giving away too right off the bat?
Well, I mean, the title will have.
But we may not know. By the end of this discussion, I may be like, you know what? I've changed my opinion. I don't like it anymore.
Okay.
But for this one, so Courtney decided to have me watch a movie that I don't think I've ever heard of. But
I don't think it would ever run across your mind. I don't think you'd ever come into it.
That was surprising because the director of it, that's actually a director I really like.
Yes.
I don't even know how to say his name. It's Spanish.
It's Alfonso Cuaron.
Cuaron?
Well, that sounds pretty French, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's Spanish. Cuaron. He's Spanish.
He's directed.
Oh wait, go back down. I wanted to see something. Did he direct the?
No, this is just more things.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking up things about this movie, and so the movie that we are discussing is A Little Princess.
Yes.
But when
quite a turn from
The Godfather. Yeah. But when you scroll down there, it showed The Secret Garden. I was just looking up stuff about the Little Princess, like the original novel, and I guess I can't remember the woman's name, but the woman who wrote the original novel, the story and the play, she wrote The Secret Garden.
Yeah, that fits.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently they're on like the list of like the top 100 novels of like all time, like ever.
Yes, because they're good.
Yeah, but so okay, so what do you think? How should we do this?
Well, I guess a little backstory on why I chose A Little Princess is I was trying to think of something that I really enjoyed growing up. I was like, let's bring it back to something that kind of meant something to me. Like my sister and I growing up, we'd watch this movie a lot and it kind of resonated with us. And I didn't think you had even heard of it, so I thought maybe this could be good. But I genuinely thought it was a really good film, not just like a kid story, because there's a lot more to it than what you would expect.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Just by the title.
Well, when we were watching it, I was just thinking like, your mom let you watch this? Because there is a lot of, I mean, we'll get into it, but there is a lot of like moments in there where I was like, I don't know if because the brilliant thing about this movie is that it very much treads that line between like being kind of a child's film, you know, so it's like, because obviously like the title and the characters and the main plot, like little girls and like little kids in general could watch this and still like be, you know, still love it. And I feel like adults can love it too, because there's so many more elements to it that you don't probably pick up as a kid as much. Like you even mentioned, there's the one part where the servant girl Becky,
yes,
she's up in her room, and the main girl Sarah goes and walks in on her. She's like, because the servant girl lives up in the attic, and you said you didn't pick up on like why she was sitting there like rubbing her feet as a child.
Yeah,
like you as a child, you didn't know like why is she doing that, or you didn't pick up on that till this watch.
Yeah, I didn't really, I think, understand why she was icing her feet.
Yeah, that's right. She was icing her feet.
Yeah. But obviously she's on her feet constantly, and her shoes are not good, so they're probably rubbing her feet raw.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she's poor and they don't care and don't really take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Can I? Okay, so I'll break down the plot because I feel like
Yeah.
this one, I don't know if a lot of people have actually seen it. I feel like it's probably something people may have heard of, but so basically, from what I remember, the main girl Sarah Crew, yeah, she lives in India with her dad, and they move. Well,
The dad.
she goes to America. He takes her to America to like stay in this school. This was it like a what kind of school was it? Just like
It's a girls' school, so
it's
pretty
just
much the father enlists to fight for the British in World War One.
yeah. So he takes her there
Yeah, so
to go to school so he can go to the war and fight.
Yeah, like he can't leave her in India. I'm pretty sure they were in India because of his military status. So he's probably doing work in India, and then he enlists to help fight in the war.
Yeah.
So he obviously takes Sarah to America, where her mom was originally from, and put her into this like girls' boarding school so that she'll be safe while he's gone. So it's the same boarding school her late mother attended, so her mom's no longer alive.
Yeah, which they talk about like in the most innocent, discreet way, because like you're kind of for most of the movie, I'm like, I wonder where her mom's at, and then there's a scene where she's like talking to this other little girl because this other little girl's like, I miss my mom. She's like crying, and I think Sarah says something like, oh well, yeah, well. My mom's in heaven too with my
Baby sister.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like such a clever way of like
introducing death to a child.
Yeah, just that and like introducing that element of the story, but just to show how mature the main girl was, Sarah.
Yeah.
Of just how accepting she was of all this. Because from the impression I get, she's been living in India probably most of her life, it seems.
Probably.
Because she has friends there. She's accustomed to the culture. A lot of the stories she tells is based around like
Indian folklore
and things like that. Which that element of the movie I thought was great. Like starting with that, where it's like this. What was the story? It was like an Indian princess ran away with this prince, and then she was kidnapped by a monster and all this.
Yeah, then it kind of alludes to like her parents, because like they use the same actors who played her mom and dad for the prince and the princess in her story.
Yeah, for like those scenes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great because like you pointed that out to me because it was just because they have to paint the guy blue.
Right. For that Indian prince
for the
character.
Indian, yeah. But yeah, I would say like overall, like I mean, this one like genuinely surprised me because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, like when you're like, oh, a little princess, what's that?
well, yeah, like when you first mentioned it, I was like, okay, like I just assumed like, oh, okay, it's probably just some like cutesy like little girl childhood movie,
right.
Which I was like fine with. But when I saw who it was directed by, I was like, oh snap, okay, like this actually might be really good because, I mean, this guy's like very well known now. He directed Gravity, if anyone's ever seen Gravity.
Yep.
He also directed Children of Men, which is a great one, and he also directed
Harry Potter
and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, yep. The only one he directed, and a lot of people consider that Harry Potter to be the best in the series, like film wise, because it's just directed so well. Like just a lot of the scenes, like with his one take thing. So that's like something I knew he was known for. Was like he loves doing these like one takes. If you've ever seen Children of Men, there's like tons of that in it, where there's like a scene where they're like in a car, there's a car chase, and there's motorcycles on both sides, but the camera just keeps revolving around, and so it never cuts. So you're getting this full-on action sequence. It's tense and it's terrifying, but the camera never cuts. It's all one single take. So when we were watching this, I was kind of like waiting for that. I was like, oh, when's he going to do it? When's he going to do a long take? Like, I'm ready to see it. He never does it, but I'm like, okay, it was probably something he developed later.
Yeah. Well, this came out in 1995.
Yeah, and it was only his second movie that he directed.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, as far as like big, like probably like a big Hollywood picture, I think that was probably his first big Hollywood movie. I think his previous one was probably more of his, like an indie film he may have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say with this one, I was like, wow, it really pulled me in because I think, like we said, a lot of the elements were very mature for a movie of this like a of this type, because it's like just from looking at it, and just like looking at posters or anything, or just like you just get the impression of just like, okay, it's like a cutesy little fairy tale girl like childhood movie, but then when you watch it, it's like, oh, there's a lot more to it. So I was thoroughly surprised. I think you made a good choice.
Thank you.
I was just like, while we were watching it too, I was like, I just think it's cute. I'm thinking about like you watching it as like a little girl with your sister, and I'm like, that's adorable.
Yeah, I think it just was a great film to, I think, not just only girls. Like, I mean, the main audience, I think, is for young girls, because the main theme in the movie is all girls are princesses. Like, you know, we all have value, and we all have self-worth, where as the main, I would say, villain in this film,
oh gosh, she's the worst,
is Miss Minchin. She is the headmistress
hated her,
of the boarding school, and I always, just watching it now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like she has so much hatred.
She's horrible
in her heart, that she must have just had a horrible childhood. And the one line that I think obviously stings her the most is when Sarah is like yelling back at her, and she's like, all girls are princesses. Didn't your dad ever tell you were a princess?
Yeah.
And it kind of stops her, and she like hesitates and, you know, gets angry and lashes back out. I was like, I don't think he did.
No. Which there was like some moments where I kind of felt like, because there was a thing going where like there was a lot of this feels kind of realistic, but then also some of it's kind of cutesy, cartoony, you know what I mean? But I thought it was like they still made it was like still like a glaze of fairy tale over it. Like, even though it was obviously pointed out that, like, you know, we started with the fairy tale like story that she's telling, and then it goes into like real life, but it still felt like, it almost felt like almost like a nicer, I'd say like a nicer, not as like just weird, creepy version of like a Tim Burton movie.
No, I mean,
you know what I mean?
I think the film kind of lets you see the life through Sarah's eyes.
Yeah.
Like, where it has that sense of magic, but I think it's like shot beautifully. Like like the way it's filmed and how they do the shots. And I just think it was visually a really neat movie that way.
You can tell like every shot was like thought out.
Yeah, it just seems very intentional with each shot. And but yeah, I just really liked the message that it gave. And I don't know, it's just like, even though there's a lot of darkness to the film, and like how young Sarah gets the news that her father has died in the war. Like, she gets news back saying that he's gone, and then her life completely changed, because she was from like a wealthy family, because her dad had assets, and, you know, he took care of her. The minute that he is reported dead, she loses everything,
because it's like the British government like takes everything that he owns.
Takes everything. And so now she's made to be a servant, and, you know, is treated
at the school.
School, and just treated terribly. You know, and then just they show the scenes in the war with her dad, and it's just like, which was really, I mean,
heavy. It was heavy. It wasn't too graphic.
It wasn't graphic. It wasn't like, you weren't seeing any blood. You weren't seeing any like gunshots or anything.
But you see bodies.
Yeah, you see bodies lying around. You see you hear bombs in like the background, and there's smoke, and it's clearly not good.
The part where they were, because there's the scene where they show her dad, he's like trying to pull this soldier to safety because he sees him alive
over the
trench, and when the wide shot's like backing away, like, I'm pretty sure I saw a soldier impaled on a tree.
It looked that
I like saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I
have to look at that again, because I'm like, there's no way, but it's possible.
I like, when I saw that, I was like, I can't believe your mom let you watch this. I mean, like, because honestly, like, for me, if we had a daughter, like, I would let her watch it. Like, I wouldn't be afraid, like, oh, this isn't going to scar her, because I think the overall message is great, and you know what I mean. And I think it's like these types of movies, it's like there's a line you have to draw with what types of movies to show your kids, obviously. But the movies like this do a good job of like showing enough to like teach them.
Yeah.
To like, hey, look, war's real, death is real. These are real things.
Yeah, like life can be hard, but I think it does a great job of portraying just that hope of like, you know, like, yes, all of these things are hard and bad, but if you help each other, like she makes that friendship with the younger African American girl who is obviously in this. This is
the servant girl, Becky.
Yeah, Becky, and this is in like World War I, so obviously they weren't treated well.
I mean, you think about it, it's only like what, maybe 50 years off of them of like slavery being ended, you know. So I mean, racism was still high, and they couldn't get jobs. They couldn't, and this girl obviously is an orphan, and this is the only thing she has.
Yeah, and so they're like the young girls are told in the boarding school. Miss Minchin is like, you know, you don't talk to her, you don't look at her, but Sarah does, and because she was brought up not to really treat anybody differently, like she's in India, you know, and stuff like that. Like she's used to other people of color.
She treats everyone equally.
Yeah, she treats everyone equally. Yeah, so it's like I like that they had to then rely on each other and build this friendship out of the hardship that now Sarah's experiencing. But then she, you know, still, even though it's hard, like she has moments where it's really like she can't really take what's going on. She's alone. She lost both their parents, and what she's supposed to do now. But then they like have that make believe of like, let's pretend like they're hungry and they can't eat. Can't have anything to eat because Miss Minchin took away their food for a day, and so let's pretend there's a big old banquet of food and stuff like that just to like survive.
I know. Like, it's so like sweet and so sad. Like, okay, so let's talk about like the character. Let's talk about Sarah.
Yeah.
The girl who plays her. What was her name?
Her actual name is Liesl Matthews.
That's right. And you told me like her family is like super wealthy, like in real life, and they like own the Hyatt hotels.
Yeah, her grandfather and I think uncle, they own the Hyatt hotel chain. So like this girl, I don't think she ever had to act, but I think they discovered her in like a play.
And they were like, oh,
she would be great, and then she auditioned and stuff like that, and then, you know, they gave her the role, and she's great.
She is. I will say, like, for being a child actor, where it's like this is her first and she was only in 2 movies, I think.
Yeah.
This and apparently Air Force One with Harrison Ford, which I've never seen. But so it like there were times where I was kind of like, you know, like the limitations of her acting kind of shown, but it wasn't like distracting, because to me it's like, well, she's a child. She's not going to be like a super expert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you have like some child actors where it's like, oh, they're just naturally gifted, and I think she was like, there were moments, but I think for the most part I was like, she's great. And I think it was also too that she's just very charming and she's just very sweet. You know, I mean, like just the scenes with her father, like especially at the beginning when he's got to like say goodbye to her and she starts like tracing his face. And he's just like, are you trying to memorize my face by heart?
Oh, yeah. Like,
isn't that what he says?
Yeah, he's like, are you trying to memorize me? Like,
or try to mesmerize me?
Like, when I'm gone, kind of a thing.
And she says, I have your memorized by heart, your face memorized by heart, or something like that.
Yeah, it was just so like, you can tell they're very close. It's just the two of them. And so it was very hard for him to leave her.
Yeah. Which the guy who played her father is in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
He played, I don't remember any of the characters' names in Game of Thrones, except Jon Snow. What was it? Well, it's Liam Cunningham. And then in Game of Thrones, he plays he's like the one dude who is like, his king is like
he's,
I don't know.
Davos. Davros, right? Isn't that
Davros?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, he's in it. So that's how I recognized him later. I was like, oh, he played a character in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But
Davos
Seaworth. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it was just great. Like all the even the little child actors, like they were just
all the girls.
Amazing. They were just all so sweet, so just like endearing to watch. Especially like Like just like when you just see them light up, especially like when Sarah like comes to the school and she starts like telling them stories. Like that's a big thing because one of Mrs. Minchin's things that she does, she has them read like one of the classics, so it'll be something like Shakespeare.
Very set on a schedule.
Yeah, but like they'll have to sit in this room at the end of their day.
These girls are probably like 10 to 12 years old.
Yeah, and they're reading like, Othello or like, I don't know, Moby Dick. They're like reading stuff that's just like so... I don't even know. Moby Dick would have been like that old at the time, but but you know what I mean.
It's
like just
some old classic that clearly
so boring. Like just no. Like it's like I'm sure they're brilliant stories, but to these little girls, they just can't. And it's like they're children too. Their attention spans aren't that developed yet.
No, they want to hear about fairy tales and something exciting adventures.
Mm-hmm. So when Sarah starts like making up her own stories and like you just see them all light up, it's just great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just like all the little side characters you see, like the one lady,
Miss Minchin's sister.
Is that wait? It's her sister?
Yeah.
The big lady?
Yeah, remember she always calls her sister.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But the ones who is in love with the milkman.
The milkman, yeah. It's really cute. I think that woman's actor, her name was Rusty. It was the real actress.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she had really great comedic timing.
She was funny
with just her facial expressions and everything, and I just loved her character because you could tell she was such a nice person as compared to her Miss Minchin, her sister, who is like evil incarnate. And then she's got this longing for this milkman, and it's so
milkman.
It's so awkward and it's kind of cringy, but it's cute. And she's just like, oh, and then then Sarah encourages her, and she's all like, why don't you run away with him? And she's like...
It'd be awfully romantic. I like how she plants this seed. She's just like, you should run away. It'd be awfully romantic to someplace tropical and exotic.
Yeah.
It'd be exciting. Well, I gotta go now. And she just leaves her. And then the lady's just sitting on the steps and she's about to get up.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah, you see her about to get up and then she just sits back down like, oh, I'm just gonna think about it.
I'm gonna ponder that.
Just like that little subtle thing of she just needs a moment to just
I think because she just kind of confides in Sarah that she's like, I was not cut out for kids.
She's like, I don't like this job.
This isn't what I wanted to do. I want to, and then I think it was cool that Sarah was like, you don't have to stay here. Go live your life.
Yeah, no, you're not what's holding you back, basically,
right?
Because you said Miss Minchin's
horrible.
So Mrs. Minchin is
Minchin.
It's even worse.
I know. She sounds...
Minchin.
Miss Minchin.
Minchin.
She sounds even evil.
Well, the only thing that I kept going through my head was whenever I'd see her is man, she's worse than Professor Umbridge.
Oh.
From Harry Potter. I'm like, I thought Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter was cold-hearted. I'm like, this woman's just awful. Just because because the thing with when it happens, when it's learned that okay, Sarah's father dies.
Yeah.
And then what happens is all the I don't know, apparently is what Mrs. Minchin tells her all your belongings, everything here, that's me now, that's going to pay back the time that you've spent here because you don't have any more money,
rent and stuff,
because the British government took it all because your father's dead, so now you got to work back for living here, and makes her a servant girl. That turnaround happens so quick.
Oh, literally Sarah is having her birthday party.
Yeah, it happens on her birthday.
Yeah. She's having a birthday party, having so much fun, playing this hide and seek.
I guess something here looks like a thorn.
And then this guy comes with news, and he's like, can I talk to you in private, Miss Minchin?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And then obviously relates to the fact that Sarah's dad has passed. And then Miss Minchin just shuts down that birthday party. She's like, go to your rooms.
Yeah.
And then, Sarah, we need to have a talk. Your father's dead. You're poor. This sucks for me. I don't care about you.
No.
You now have to work off the debt.
Yeah, she just says, your father's dead. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and she's so blunt about it.
And Sarah's just sitting she doesn't start crying. She's just kind of in shock. And Miss Minchin's just like, Wait, aren't you paying attention? Like, this is serious stuff. And it's like, can you give her a minute, girl?
You
like,
just told her father died.
Like, that the only other family she has in the world is dead. And obviously, like, yeah, Mrs. Minchin just did not have a good childhood. Like, she was introduced to the world in a much more cold-hearted way, I think, from her parents. Her dad, particular, I guess, is what they're alluding to.
I mean, I'm sure how she told Sarah about her dad passing, just being so blunt with everything and not sugarcoating anything, not taking it any, lightly with Sarah. I think that's exactly how she was spoken to.
And so she just assumed, that's how I need to let her know.
Well, if she was mistreated, then she's likely to then mistreat others.
Yeah.
So I think that's just kind of like the domino effect of her. She's like, the world sucks. Like, I wasn't raised in a nice, loving home as clearly she was. Mm-hmm. So you can tell there's a jealousy to Miss Minchin, even towards Sarah.
Yeah.
Like, she's clearly jealous of this little girl who has a loving father, have everything she could ever want. Mm-hmm. And, well, she's kind of maybe had a bad life. And
it seems like she probably had to struggle to get where she's at, but it's made her very cold and distant.
Yeah.
And one part that's like, you start to kind of see that, like how she kind of resents Sarah, is when Sarah first comes to the school, and I think she tells her, like, oh, you have to go take French classes. And
oh, yes.
Sarah's like, I don't want to take French. And she's like, well, you got to. And I think she says, like, I don't want to do it. And it's like the French teacher standing right there.
Well, no, she just says, like,
apologize to him.
Well, she doesn't say, I don't want to do it. She says, do I have to?
Yeah.
Like, she's like, oh, do I have to take French? And then Midge is like, rude, apologize to Professor. And then
Je crois baiser.
And then she lets out this whole apology in perfect fluent French. And then the professor's like, she doesn't need to take French. She practically is French.
And he turns to Mrs. Minchin and
she's
is like, he can help you with your pronunciation, Mrs. Minchin.
Yeah.
And you see it like in her face. She's like, ooh.
Oh, this girl.
Hates this little girl.
She hates her.
I know.
And she's like, I tried to tell you that I don't need French tutoring. I was just like, ooh, got her.
But just like all the little things she starts to like kind of break down with Mrs. Minchin. Like when they're sitting down for breakfast and she starts talking, Mrs. Minchin's like, we don't talk at the table. And she's like, I don't.
She just has all these rules. Yeah. And then Sarah's like, doesn't seem natural.
Yeah, no. Like, that doesn't seem right.
I think Sarah, she's just like a strong, smart little girl who stands strong in her beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I think it was very like kind of ahead of its time in that they were showing this young girl kind of being empowered in, what she wants and who she is and being nice to other people. Just, like even though the world, hands you a bad, hand, that you can still, make the most out of it. And you don't need to like be selfish, like help other people.
But just like all the life that this little girl lives.
She lived through so much.
Like just in this, I mean, we don't know how long.
Yeah. We don't know exactly
the length of time the movie is taking place. Or I just mean like in like the plot of the movie,
sure.
like from when she gets to the school to when her dad dies.
Yeah, it could be
to the end of the movie. Yeah. So I don't know how long it's been, but I'm like, that is just such a thing for
a roller coaster of life
for a little girl to go through. Mm-hmm. So it's not only like she's like kind of coming through, she's like maturing, but still she's keeping a lot of her like a lot of her like just childhood magic to her.
Yeah, and I think the film did a good job of portraying that magic through like the way they filmed it and the soundtrack that they used.
Yeah, the cinematography, it's very bright, very colorful. Like when things aren't going well, like the scenes it's like where Sarah's having to like go through the street and like have to like get the groceries to cook the food in the kitchen and all this. Everything's really gray. Yeah. And it's like snowing and it's like crappy out, and then like but then like when they want to show like a more lighter mood. I mean, this is just cinematography 101, but it's like they use so many colors. Like I noticed the color green a lot. Like the color green was like a big. I don't know if it was like what they were using for, because it was like all the girls, like their uniforms were green.
Yeah, the building of the boarding school was
there would always be like just like green food, like just veggies or whatever. Just showing like new life, maybe, like in a way, like young innocence,
I could
just
see
kind of
that.
like see that kind of coming through. And even like having Mrs. Minchin be that way, just it's almost like trying to say like that's, in a way, it's like she's like, trying to hang on to like a part of that herself, or it's like something there that she doesn't see.
And well, her character always wore like dark clothes.
Yeah, she wore green, but it was like darker. It wasn't as like
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just the film had so many good moments in it. Like, what did you think about the scene with Sarah and Becky, and they wake up to, clothes and food, and like they're...
Well, I was confused for a second, because I'm like, is this a dream?
Well, that's what it kind of feels like. I think that's what it's supposed to be like. Like the girls think that too. Like, is this real life? Is this a dream? And I love because Becky's, with Sarah coming in and bringing her positivity and her stories. Becky's like, it's like magic how she, is and talks that way. And then I love when Becky's like sees everything, because Sarah's like, wake up, like there's all these glorious like food and clothes and everything. There's like beautiful orange and yellow drapes everywhere, and then Becky's like, I think you went a little too far this time. Like you used your magic.
You used too much magic.
And Sarah's
we're gonna get in trouble.
It wasn't me. And because it's just, I thought that was cute. What did you think of that?
I always thought it was great. I just, because I thought that was great for Becky as well, because I'm like, I don't think she's ever been treated this kindly her whole life. And she's just a little girl. And I'm like, we don't know her backstory. We don't know what happened to her mother, her father, nothing, like how she ended up here. But it's like, just from the little things you see of her, like she's just, her life has just been horrible up to this point. And it's just, I think it was great just to see her light up and just be so, just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this is happening. And, just like when you see like pure joy. And I just thought the child actors, they just did such a good job at like portraying that.
Yeah. You could tell they had a lot of fun together. I think, what I really liked is just, I think it had a constant thing of like reaching out and helping somebody else. Like a lot of these moments, like when, like you said before, when Sarah's in the market and she's shopping, there was that poor family of that mom and her daughters, and they're trying to sell flowers. Yeah. And then...
Yeah, that's all they're trying. They're just trying to sell flour for something so they can
just to make money to get food. Yeah. And then Sarah got some money because this little boy who's walking by thought she was like a beggar or, a homeless person, and gave her like a coin. And she tried to return it, but the mom was like, get away. So then she went and bought like a cinnamon roll or like a bun. Yeah. To something eat. Warm something warm to eat. And then she sees this family and she's like, you know what? They deserve this more than me. Yeah. So she goes and gives them that, and then they give her the flower. And then she gives the flower to the neighbor whose son passed, who was in the war with her dad, who was the person the dad was trying to help and save over the trench. And she puts that rose, the flower... in the door hinge, and it was just it's just like a constant like almost paying it forward, but kind of like just like giving it like I'm gonna help you, and and
just continuously help this person, I'm gonna help them. But that's the thing, is like this movie can introduce children to like so many things, like to help other people and to like tell them history about war and racism. I mean, it's just so much there, and different cultures, because not only that, it's like you have like she's from India, but she's this little white girl, but she's in India, and she experienced this whole other life over there, so dramatically different from where she's at currently.
Yeah.
And then I was even thinking about, like, because the neighbor guy you talked about, whose son dies, he has like some sort of caregiver guy who's Indian.
Yeah.
And he's
almost like an advisor to this man.
Yeah. But he's Indian, but he's not wearing like the garb like everyone else is wearing. He's wearing like Indian, like colorful clothes, a headdress with the feather, and he's got a monkey.
Yeah,
like he's just rocking it. Like you don't care.
Yeah, you get the very mystical sense from him. You're like, what's this guy about?
Yeah. So like,
which is the one who then because he overheard, because since the buildings are right next to each other, he overheard Sarah and Becky kind of imagining up food, and and he was like, I'm going to help these girls out. And you don't really know how he does it, but
it's whatever.
It's so cute.
Maybe his monkey carried over all the drapes and the food, but it's fine. It's just like, just take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, you just take it for, but it's cute. Like he obviously did it, kind of a thing.
But I just thought it was cool how like he's a character, like he's there, and I'm just wondering, like, I wonder how just people would react to him, like seeing him.
I'm sure they would just like gawk at him.
But then Sarah's just like, you know what I mean? Like to him, it's like he's just another person. But it's also like it's home to her. He's familiar.
Yeah, he's familiar.
Yeah. I love the part where was it a dream or not? But there's a scene where it's like she wakes up in her room and it's snowing. And she goes outside her window and she starts like dancing and it's like snowing. And then the Indian guy's across on his like balcony, and they start like bowing to each other, and then after they bow, she'll like dance, and then they bow again, and he's just smiling. I wasn't sure if that was a dream or not. I think it might have been.
I didn't get that sense as a dream.
You thought it was actually happening?
I thought it was, like I didn't get it was a dream. I just got it as like she would, like her doors flew open because of this wind and the snow, and then he was out there kind of maybe doing some morning greetings or meditations or something.
He probably could have been praying.
Yeah. That she, I think she was just feeling hopeful, and so they had that moment together. And I thought that was a very magical moment because neither of them speak to each other, but they're just kind of like, you can tell they're on the same like wavelength. That way they kind of get each other.
You get the sense of like just like magic from it,
Yeah.
Well, even they introduced that right off the bat, that like India is like this magical place to her, because the movie starts with opening credits and she's narrating a fairy tale, and she say, once upon a time there was a beautiful princess in a magical land called India. And then the title pops up, a little princess, and I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, they really did a good of like, they made it opposite of India versus New York. Like, India's warm and bright, and the colors are vibrant, and then you get to New York and everything's cold, and the colors are muted, and everything's just green and brown and gray and black and bland. So you kind of got the sense of like, that's kind of how Sarah's probably feeling about India versus New York, kind of like that. She loved India, that was her home, and now she's here and her dad's gone, and she's like, what is this? Where am I?
What? Oh crap, what was I gonna say?
I don't know, I can't read your mind.
Well, but no, I don't remember. It's gone. I guess it didn't matter. But yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, I think they just had a lot of like a good imagery that way of like portraying those two locations, and then every time she would like tell the stories to the girls, just that whole film sequence of the story, her telling the story, is very like bright. And
I like when they show the monster in the story.
Yeah,
it's like just
it's terrifying.
Well, I was gonna say it's like god awful CGI, but I think terrible. That was part of the charm of it. Was like that was kind of.
I mean, it was 1995. They're not doing too well with CGI.
Oh no, it's
special effects.
No, it was. I mean, it was very primitive in terms of like those kind of effects. But I thought that was part of the charm. Was like it's not supposed to look great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to just like you're
that-
imagining it. Like I don't know what do you expect it to look like?
Yeah, like this monster with like 8 heads and 8 arms, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of is very sporadic in its movements. And
Yeah.
it's like, ugh.
Oh yeah. Should we talk about the end of the movie?
Oh yes. So what was your impression?
So what happens is like so her father. It turns out that her father's alive.
Yeah, they missed the news that way. It was wrong. It was like the son
Yeah.
of the guy Randolph, the neighbor. His son actually died.
Yeah.
But then her dad was still alive. But there was gas. Like I think they were dropping bombs with like gas, so it like, you know, injured him.
He probably hit his head, and he has amnesia.
Yeah, he has amnesia, and he had bad with his eyes, so his like head was all wrapped and he couldn't see. But they called the Randolph neighbor because they're like, "Oh, we have your son. Like, come here to identify him at this hospital."
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets there and he's like, "That's not my son."
Yeah.
But then the Indian guy, the friend advisor guy, he was like, we should help him pretty much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, well, let's take him anyway and let's help him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, who else does this guy have? Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's pretty obvious. Like when you see close up of his face, it's like that's her dad.
Oh, that's her dad.
Like it is. But I think that was part of the idea. Was like it's not supposed to be this big reveal. Like oh, it's her dad. It's like we know it's her dad. It's when
Sarah finding out.
Yeah. It's like when's Sarah gonna find out? Like that is her dad. But he also has amnesia, so he's not gonna remember her. You know.
But he's right next door.
He's right there. So there's this terribly sad moment. So what happens is, because I think it all like leads into each other. But since the Indian guy like gave him that like the banquet and like all the sheets and all that stuff, Miss Minchin goes up to the attic where they're at, and she thinks that they stole it all. So then, and then, like, kind of crazy, but she calls the cops on him. And it's like 4 grown, like, policemen, like, to come and arrest one little girl.
It's a little much.
I'm like, seriously, Ms. Minchin, like, calm down.
I think they did that kind of more, like, to make it really scary and serious. Like, all these policemen are coming. I think as a kid, that's what you envision.
It's scary, yeah.
Yeah, like, if you think the police are called or the police are coming, you're not thinking one guy. You're thinking like a whole brigade of men are coming to get you. So I was like, yeah, that's a little much. Like you don't need that many men to get this little girl or 2, you know. But
you just need one guy, probably.
One guy.
But yeah, it's like dark and it's raining and stormy, and Sarah's like, I gotta get out of here. So her and Becky take like this big plank of wood and they stick it like across like the buildings there, and Sarah has to like go walk across it, and she goes into her neighbor's building, which is where her dad currently is, but he has amnesia, and she goes down there and hides. And so Mrs. Minchin and the cops go, and they're like, we think a little girl escaped in your house. And then she sees him. She sees her dad, but he doesn't remember her, and he's trying to she's just crying. That's it. And so he starts talking to her.
Yeah, well, the first thing is, you know, like it's raining, and then like this lightning goes off and it electrocutes, you know, the house, so it like takes away the electricity for a little bit. So it's dark. So it's supposed to be like they can't see each other, just like hear. So she like hides in the corner and she can hear him, and he's like, you know, being nice, and he's like, "What's wrong? Why are you crying? You know, let me help you," kind of a thing. And then he's like, "What's your name?" And then the lights come back on, and then she sees him, and she's like,
"Papa?"
Yeah, she's like, "Oh my God, it's my dad."
Yeah. And
then, you know, she's obviously like freaking out, and she's like, "Don't you remember me? It's Sarah." And he's like, "No, I don't." And I'm like, "Oh my God, the police are coming," and they're dragging her away, and she's screaming, yelling out for him. It's so heart-wrenching.
It's terrible. And then you just see the Indian guy goes up to him, and it's like, obviously it's just like the trauma of what just happened, like, and like, you know, hearing her, seeing her probably brought back his memory.
Yeah.
But it's also like the Indian guy just goes up to him and he's just like staring at him, and it's almost like he's like willing him to be like, remember.
Yeah,
it's like, come on. Man, remember.
It's like he knows.
He knows. It's like somehow he knows, and he's just like, please remember, do something. You know what I mean?
Like they're taking
he's like,
her
I can't do
away.
anything. Please do something. And he runs out to her.
Dawns on him.
And he runs out. He's like, Sarah.
It's so heart wrenching. Every time I watch it, I just get chills. I'm just like, oh my god.
And Mrs. Minchin's just like,
well, that's what's the crazy thing before is like when they all come into the room because she's calling him Papa, and then Mr. Randall's like, you know this man? And then Miss Minchin is like, this child has no father, which she perfectly knows who he is. Like, she met him.
Yeah.
Like, she knows who he is.
But
and she's like, this child has no father.
So you
Take her away. So you almost hate her more because
you see her like how evil she is.
Yeah, I was like, you know that's her dad.
Yeah.
Like, you
know that's him.
And yet you still were like, nope, take her away. That's not her dad. Umbridge. She's terrible. And like it's kind of funny at the end because like she loses the school. The neighbor Mr. Randolph takes over, and and it's like everything's better. And then Miss Minchin ends up being like a chimney sweep, which I'm like, okay, yeah, it's dirty and gross because before she like had this boy to come sweep her chimney, and she gets all mad about all this soot and dirt everywhere, and then she ends up being a chimney sweep. But you almost were like, man, I just wish there was more of that badness happened to her. Like, couldn't she even thrown in jail or something? I don't think. I guess that's too dark.
No. I think you can't arrest her for being mean to the little girl because I think she was doing what she was probably supposed to do.
You could arrest her if she lied about that being her dad, right?
Oh yeah, I mean maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so.
Maybe not.
I mean, it's just like she could easily just be like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
She could make up something.
Sure.
But okay, I remember what I was going to say earlier.
Oh, you're good.
The part where there's the scene where there's Sarah and Becky, they're sleeping in the attic. They sleep in opposite rooms. They're like, there's just a wall right in between them. There's just like this thin wall. And it's wintertime, so it's freezing up there. They don't got any warmth. And Becky's like, I'm so cold, can't sleep or something. Then Sarah starts describing India and saying how it's like the air is so warm that you can taste it. It tastes like curry and spices and then she's just like talking about it. And I was just listening to her talk about it. I was just like, keep going, Sarah. I could fall asleep too.
I know.
I don't know what it was. It's
very like, yeah.
That little girl had such a soothing voice. I'm like,
cozy.
Yep. Okay, Sarah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
She did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was like, what, 12 or whatever, 14 at the time. I'm not sure. But yeah, she like just had this very mature voice. And when she would talk, you would just like listen to her. You're just like, oh my gosh, this girl is so insightful.
Yeah.
But I did like that moment because it was a lot of like, yeah, like her imagination and her love for the fairy tales or the magic kind of what kept them going.
Yeah.
Because they were
it was terrible. They had to get up at like probably 5 a.m. every morning and cook and then go clean the house all day. And I mean, like that was their lives. Yeah, it was very bad, just very terrible situations that they were in. So I'm trying to think what other moments I liked. Oh, I love the so there's one girl when Sarah first goes to the school. There's one little girl who she's kind of the bully. She's kind of the one that like everyone like.
Yeah, she's like clearly kind of like, I don't want to say the leader necessarily, but she's the oldest and she kind of bosses the other girls around.
She's the what's Rachel McAdams' character in Mean Girls?
Oh, she's Regina George.
She's Regina George. She's the Regina George of these girls right now. And then Sarah comes in and, like, she's more fun and she's telling them stories. So everyone kind of starts hanging out with Sarah more.
Yeah.
But this girl, obviously, she don't like Sarah at all. Like, not until, like, up until the end. But there's a part where when Sarah's now a servant girl and then she has to go into this girl's room and make a fire for her.
Oh, yeah, switch out the firewood.
Yeah, and then she's just bossing her around and Sarah just stands up and she just goes, I don't even know what she said. She goes,
she does this full-on dramatic, like, Indian tribal curse dance. And
Yeah.
totally.
She's like, what did you do to me?
Yeah, she's all like, the girl's like, what are you doing? Stop! And like freaking out, and it's really funny. And then Sarah just stops and goes, just kind of like,
She's just like, that was a
what
curse.
did you do? She's like, I just put a little curse on you that I learned from a witch.
Yeah.
Like, oh. I was like, when she says that though, I was like, what childhood did this girl have? Like, who did she,
I think she just made it up.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't real. I think she just made that up because she knew, like, oh, this girl's not going to know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So, but I just thought that was great. And then she's just like, I just wouldn't brush your hair for a while.
Yeah, because the girl's you could tell she's kind of very vain. She's all about her hair.
She's very anal about her hair. Like, she's always
brushes it like 50 times a day.
Well, there's literally a part where, like, there's some girls in her room late at night watching her hair get brushed by another girl, and they can hear Sarah down the hall telling her stories to the other little girls, and they're just like, okay, anything would be better than watching you get your hair brushed for an hour.
Yeah.
You know?
She's
and so it's like, okay, so they all got to sit around and
watch this girl get her hair
so
brushed.
Weird.
Like, they should be so honored to witness this hair brushing session.
So stupid. But then there's a little moment later where that girl is brushing her hair and a little bit of hair gets stuck on the brush.
A lot of hair.
It was a lot of hair. It could have been stress. I don't know. But then she just passes out.
Yeah, she's like, oh my God. Her curse. I'm losing my hair.
It was funny.
There's actually a lot of comedic moments where I think are just very cute and clever.
Which are very well deserved because a lot of it's just so miserable.
Dark and heavy.
Because, like, again, it takes that turn and just the movie goes from being just so just happy and innocent and fantastical to just miserable and just...
Yeah.
I was like, oh, man. Like, it really does. And I literally turned to you and was like, what are you making me watch? Yeah. Like, why are you making me sad?
All these emotions.
It really got to me.
I know.
I think it's just sad to see, those children in that position where it's like they literally have no choice, especially Becky.
Oh,
like,
I know.
She never had a choice. That was it. That's all she had.
I know. So that's what kind of made it so great at the end when her dad, takes Sarah away. They take Becky too.
Yeah.
And, Becky's in nice clothes, which she's probably never had in her whole life. And, she's going to go into a new home and they're going to be sisters. And
it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess that kind of goes back to like one of the first interactions Becky and Sarah have is after Sarah kind of walks in on her to see her icing her feet, clearly because of her bad shoes. Sarah is very wealthy, so she has more than enough things. So she then surprises Becky with these cute yellow fur insole shoes and, has a little note that says, I hope we can be friends.
Oh, I know.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is probably the first time this little girl has ever had anything like that.
She's ever been just, like, given a gift.
Yeah, probably her first gift.
Just a selfless, like, gift someone just gave her. I was, like, worried, too, when she got that. I'm like, don't let Miss Minstrom see him. She's going to take that away from you.
I know.
She's mean. She takes away Sarah's locket that has the pictures of her parents in it.
I know. I'm like, no.
You can't even let her have that?
Yeah, she's like, no jewelry. And then Sarah, when she first gets there, then Sarah's like, well, can I just have it and just wear it in my room on my own time? And then the dad's standing right there, so I think Minchin has to be like, sure. But secretly would be like, no.
But like now that
he's gone, then she just takes it.
She's so mean.
She's so mean. I know you just hated her so much.
I'm glad she's a chimney sweep. I hope she fell down one. And
it's funny though. Like,
I hope she got stuck in one.
I mean, she probably would. She's like an adult, whereas those chimneys were really narrow. I
got the impression too that like she plays the harp a lot, so I got the impression I was like, I bet you there was like some sort of backstory where obviously it's not revealed to us, but I bet it was something like I bet she tried to be like a musician at one point and then it didn't work out. That's why she's like constantly like playing it and practicing and taking it so seriously. And then like another reason why she's just so resentful and hatred towards everything.
Yeah,
at least that's what I was getting. I don't know.
I almost got like could imagine her like maybe she as a young girl had her own Miss Minchin who just destroyed any young fantasy out of her, and maybe,
the harp was like the last thing.
Maybe that was like, you don't need to be doing these silly child things. Do something useful.
Yeah.
Play the harp instead of, whatever she was doing.
Oh, I was thinking like the harp, maybe that was like the last thing she hung on to or something.
That she liked.
Yeah. But then, she takes it so seriously. It looks like she doesn't even enjoy it. She's just like she's just like plucking the strings, and I'm like, God, you suck.
Well, I think she's like, you have to. When she goes on a raid, she's like, you have to bring like, usefulness to society. Like none of these silly childish fantasies.
Yeah.
She's probably just like.
I feel like the harp's not that useful to society. It's pretty.
At the time, I think women, could only do so much.
Right.
So whether it was learn to play the piano or the harp or violin or cook or whatever it is, like they couldn't be out there doing, they couldn't be a business owner or anything like that. So women were there to entertain.
To get to the status that she got to, she probably felt very entitled by that point.
Right.
But yeah, overall, babe, I'll give this one a yum. I really enjoyed it. It was great.
You heard it here, folks.
I thought it was great. I kind of knew I was going to like it too. Like when I saw the director, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
So now, well, we're not going to do this next week, but I think at some point we should make this a trilogy. So
it's not really a trilogy.
It's not a trilogy.
The same director.
Yeah, because there's another movie he directed, which I think I mentioned earlier. It's called Children of Men, and it's incredible, and I loved it. I've only seen it once, but I loved it, and I've always wanted to watch it again. But I think this would be a good opportunity for you to check it out. Probably not next episode, probably a while from now. But I thought we could do that, and then maybe for a special episode, we'll watch his last movie he did, which I never saw, and we should just both give our reactions to it. It's called Roma. It's on Netflix. Yeah. Apparently it was really good, and I wanted to watch it, but I'm like, oh man, I got to be in the right mood though, because it looks terribly sad.
It looks very heavy.
It looks very heavy, but I'm like, I want to watch it, but I shouldn't watch it alone because I'll just be depressed. But yeah, so I'm going to give this one a yum, babe.
Wow, I'm glad you liked it.
I did. I thought it was great. You picked a good one.
Thanks.
Better than that one.
Wait, hey. Now.
I mean, it was. I mean, just as a quality as a movie, this was a better movie than The Greatest Showman.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, a much better film, just overall.
It definitely makes you feel a lot
and it was
more.
right. Like, everything it was trying to portray was
It came off right,
yeah. Whereas The Greatest Showman was just, gross.
Sure.
This movie was not gross at all. This movie, except Mrs. Minchin, she was gross. I didn't like her at all.
Yeah. Well, I figured all my 90 babies girls, if they watch this as a young girl, they'll probably think back on it and be like,
or boys.
Yeah. Or boys.
That boy could have watched this.
I guess you could if your mom did that to you.
Yeah.
Poor things.
I'd show, if we had a son, I'd show this to him maybe.
I would think, he might like it.
He might.
We'll see. He might like just the scary.
He might put Spider-Man back on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, if he's your son, he might say that.
Yeah. But, all right, well, I guess we'll call this one a wrap. So where can people find us, babe?
They can find us on Spotify and Apple Music.
Apple Podcasts. Yeah, they can find us on Apple Podcasts now. Don't Yuck My Yum.
Yes.
We have an Instagram. It's called Don't Yuck My Yum Pod. We don't have a Twitter yet. I'm not even sure if I want to set that up. We might eventually.
Yeah.
And we don't have a theme song yet, but hopefully we'll get that set up at some point. If someone wants to make us one, just if they want to.
Sure.
Any
musically inclined people out there?
Yeah. Or we might make one ourselves. We'll figure it out. Don't yuck my yum.
Yeah. Maybe not that.
Don't yuck my yum.
No, I'm not
doing it.
No.
Do it. Just do a little one. No. Just do a tiny little. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take that.
Cool.
But
well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And stay tuned for next week. I don't know what I'm going to make you watch, but I brought a bunch of DVDs back from home, so I don't know. I'm going to have to go through there, and we'll see. I don't know. Ooh. All right.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Hey everybody, this is Carlito Gilchrist from the Don't Yuck My Yum pod. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in and listening every week. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to leave a review for the show, you can leave it on Apple Podcasts. You can give us a 1 to 5 star rating. We prefer the 5-star ratings, but it's your opinion. It's whatever you like. As well, you can listen to us on Spotify and Anchor.fm and anywhere else where podcasts are available. I believe we're up on there. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or insights on past episodes, you can always email us at don'tyuckmyyumpod@gmail.com. As well, you can follow us on Don't Yuck My Yum Pod on Instagram. And I just want to say thanks for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. Have a good week. So long. Bye-bye.